A Werewolf Shifter Romance written by Madeline Carter. Chapter 1. The Vault of Trust. Rain whispered against the roof of the vault like a warning that refused to leave. Lysandra Vale sat alone at the long oak table, candlelight trembling over parchment and sealed ledger books, her hands steady in a place that had trained steadiness into her bones. The vault was not a room anyone stumbled into. It was a promise the pack made to itself, a hidden annex beneath the old lodge, lined with stone and iron, where secrets were stored the way some wolves stored weapons, not to admire them, but to make sure nobody else could touch them first. Lysandra had been brought here at 15, not because she was special in the way songs described, because she was quiet in the way the council preferred, and she listened, and she remembered. She did not ask why. The elders called it an honor, the pack called it trust. Lysandra had once believed those words meant the same thing. Tonight, she lifted the newest document from its leather sleeve and read the heading again, as if repetition could soften what it implied. Covenant Summary, Midsummer Meeting, Eastridge Border. Parties present, 3 pack representatives. Names redacted. Terms recorded by the vault keeper, her. The redactions were always clean, like someone had learned the trick of erasing a name without erasing the blood that followed it. A soft knock came from the stairwell door. Lysandra did not turn, and she recognized the rhythm. 3 knocks, a pause, then one more, formal, controlled, a council timing. Enter, she said. The door opened, and Elder Maxton Rell stepped inside with the air of someone who believed the building itself existed for his convenience. He was not the loudest elder. He was worse. He was careful. He smiled as if he enjoyed being reasonable. His cloak dripped rainwater onto the stone floor, and he did not apologize. He smelled like wet wool and cold authority, and beneath that, faint, a trace of ink that did not belong to a clerk's desk. Vault ink. Lysandra's eyes did not move, but her attention did. Vault keeper, he said. Lysandra inclined her head, the gesture small and correct. Elder Rell. He glanced at the table, at the seals, at the ledgers, at the covenant summary resting under her fingertips. You have the record, he said. I do, Lysandra replied. His gaze sharpened, subtle as a blade edge. Then you understand the weight of it. Lysandra kept her voice calm. I understand what is written. Elder Rell walked closer, stopping on the other side of the table, leaving the candlelight between them like a boundary. He spoke softly, as if the stone walls might gossip. This agreement keeps the border quiet. It keeps our hunters alive. It keeps trade routes open. He paused. And it keeps the council from having to explain things to wolves who do not understand strategy. Lysandra's fingers tightened slightly on the parchment. That last line was not meant for the pack. It was meant for her, a reminder: stay in your place, hold the weight. Do not question the hands that give it to you. You want it sealed, Lysandra said. Elder Rell's smile returned. Yes, full lock, he added. Deep shelf. No access without council vote. Lysandra met his eyes, expression neutral. The vault rules allow council lock. Elder Rell nodded, satisfied. And you will comply. Lysandra looked down at the summary again. The ink was neat, the language polite, the kind of polite that hid blood behind its teeth. How many wolves died because of this? She asked. Quietly, the question landed heavier than her voice. Elder Rell did not react at first. Then he exhaled, as if she had inconvenienced him. 4, he said. 5, depending on how you count the injured one. Lysandra's stomach tightened. She pictured names she was not allowed to write, faces that would be remembered by mothers, not by council minutes. And the council's position is that this is acceptable. she said. Elderell's eyes chilled. The council's position is that the border remains stable. He leaned slightly forward. You of all people should understand that stability has a price. Lysandra did not lower her gaze. Stability, she repeated. Elderell's smile thinned. You are drifting into opinions. Lysandra's voice stayed even. I am drifting into clarity. The candle flame flickered, and for a moment the shadows on Elderell's face looked less human. More wolf. He straightened. Vault Keeper, he said, with quiet emphasis, your duty is to preserve the pack. I am preserving it, Lysandra replied. I am preserving the truth of what it costs. Elderell watched her for a long beat. Then, he tapped the table once, a small sound that carried to far in the stone room. You were selected for this role because you do not break, he said. You do not leak. You do not become sentimental. Lysandra held his gaze. I do not become convenient, she said. Elderell's nostrils flared. Seal it. The order was simple. The kind of order that assumed compliance. Lysandra reached for the wax stamp. Because ritual mattered here, and ritual was the pack's favorite disguise. She pressed the stamp into warm wax. Slow and deliberate. The council crest appeared, crisp and final. She could have stopped there. She should have stopped there. Instead, she pulled her ledger closer and opened to a page that was not part of the current covenant. A page she had marked weeks ago and never spoken about. Elderell noticed the movement immediately. What are you doing? He asked. Lysandra did not answer right away. She ran her finger down a list of dates. Midsummer, harvest, winter single quotes as first moon. 4 separate agreements. 4 separate border incidents. For separate times the council had delivered a summary and demanded it be buried. Elderell's eyes narrowed. Lysandra? Her name, not her title, a warning. Lysandra turned another page, older entries, different handwriting, different vault keeper. Same pattern. The council called it strategy, the vault called it record. But the truth, sitting there in ink, was simpler. This was not one secret. This was a system. And she could see the architecture now. The way you could see a trap once you spotted the first wire. Elderell stepped closer, voice low. You are not authorized to cross-reference sealed covenants without vote. Lysandra kept her gaze on the page. The vault rules allow the keeper to verify continuity. She said. Elderell's smile disappeared. You are reaching. Lysandra finally looked up. Her eyes were calm, but something behind them had shifted. No, she said. I am reading what you assumed I would never connect. Elderell's face hardened. You are trusted, he said. Lysandra nodded once. That is what makes this dangerous. The silence in the vault changed. It became attentive. As if the stone itself leaned in. Elderell spoke carefully now, every word measured. You are tired, he said. You will lock the covenant. You will go home. And tomorrow you will remember what your role is. Lysandra felt her pulse slow, not from fear, but from decision. My role, she said, is to keep what is real from being rewritten. Elderell's gaze turned cold. You think you can fight the council with ink? Lysandra closed the ledger softly. The sound was small, final, double quotes. I think you have been fighting wolves with ink for years, she replied. Elderell stared at her as if he had never truly seen her before. You are overestimating yourself, he said. Lysandra shook her head once. No, she said. I have been underestimating what you built. Elderell's voice dropped, threatening without volume. If you make noise, you will tear the pack apart. Lysandra stood, slow and controlled, keeping her hands visible. She did not posture. She did not plead. I am not going to tear it apart, she said. I am going to stop you from doing it quietly. Elder Rel's jaw flexed. You will do nothing, he said. Lysandra looked at the sealed covenant, then at the shelves behind him, rows of hidden histories stacked like bones, then back at the elder. I will do one thing, she said. I will write a second record. Elder Rel's eyes sharpened. What second record? Lysandra reached for a blank page and set it beside the sealed summary. A record that cannot be locked by council vote, she said. A record that belongs to the pack, not to the men who claim to speak for it. Elder Rel took a step forward, put the pen down. Lysandra did not. She dipped it in ink. The first drop fell like a heartbeat. She began to write. Elder Rel's hand moved, fast enough that she heard the scrape of leather. Not a weapon. A small council blade, meant for sealing cords and cutting wax, not for blood. But it was in his palm now, visible in the candlelight, a quiet message. If the council needed to, it would cut more than parchment. Lysandra did not flinch. She kept writing anyway. Outside, thunder rolled over the lodge inside. The vault keeper did not tremble, because the moment she connected the pattern, she understood the real trap. The secrets were not meant to protect the pack. They were meant to control whoever carried them. And now the council would have to decide what frightened them more. A truth that stayed buried, or a woman who had finally learned how to use it. Chapter 2. The record that shouldn't exist. Second record did not scream, it did not accuse, it did not threaten. That was what made it dangerous. Lysandra wrote in the same careful hand she had been trained to use since adolescence. Ink measured, lines straight, language precise, no emotion, no judgment, just sequence. Location, covenant invoked, outcome recorded, cost absorbed, and she did not name the dead. Not yet. Names were a kind of ignition, and she needed this first page to be ice, not fire. Elder Rel watched from across the table, silent now, his presence tight and contained, like a wolf that had realized too late that the trap was already closed. You are creating an unofficial document, he said at last. Lysandra did not look up. I am creating a parallel record. There is no such thing, he replied. There is, she said calmly. You just never needed one before. She finished the page, sanded the ink, and closed the ledger. Then she did something that made Elder Rel's fingers twitch. She slid the book into the open air shelf, not the sealed stacks, not the deep vault, the public tier. Rell stepped forward immediately. That shelf is not for council-sensitive material. It is for pack memory, Lysandra said. Which this is. You do not decide that. Lysandra finally met his eyes. I do. That is literally my role. The words hung between them, clean and unadorned. Elder Rel stared at her for a long moment, recalculating. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted, softer, almost conciliatory. You are exhausted, he said. You have carried too much for too long. Lysandra recognized the tactic. Concern as restraint. Soft hands around the throat. You should rest, he continued. I will inform the council that the covenant is sealed. Nothing more needs to happen tonight. Lysandra inclined her head slightly. You may inform them of whatever version you prefer. Rel's eyes narrowed. You will not attend the council session tomorrow. It was not phrased as a suggestion. Lysandra nodded once. Then, you will have to explain why the vault keeper is absent. During a continuity review, Rel's mouth tightened. You assume you are irreplaceable. I assume, Lysandra replied, that no one else knows where the fractures are. That landed. for a heartbeat. The careful elder looked almost human. Then his expression reset. Back mask, a council mask. This conversation is not finished, he said. Rel turned away first, cloak swirling sharply as he moved toward the door. He paused at the threshold, just long enough to make his meaning sharp. If you insist on playing historian, he said softly, be sure you remember how historians end when the living decide they are inconvenient. Then he left. The door closed behind him with a soft but final sound. For several heartbeats, the vault was silent. Then Lysandra exhaled, not relief, recognition. She had crossed a line that did not announce itself with alarms or guards. It was subtler than that, the kind of line that only mattered because someone in power felt it. Shift. She gathered the remaining ledgers, returned them to their places, and extinguished 2 of the candles. The vault dimmed, shadows stretching along the shelves like listening things. She checked the public tier once more, not because she doubted what she had done, but because she needed to see it sitting there, open air, no council lock. A simple fact on a simple shelf. As she climbed the narrow stone stairs toward the lodge above, she felt it, not fear, but tension. The lodge corridors were empty, but not quiet. Wolves lingered in doorways, paused mid-conversation, watched her pass with the careful stillness of people sensing change before they understood it. Lysandra kept walking. Outside, the rain had slowed to a steady drizzle. The night washed clean and sharp with cold. She pulled her coat tighter and headed toward the path that led to her quarters. She did not make it 10 steps before someone fell into stride beside her. You picked a hell of a night to get brave. The voice was low, female, edged with humor that had learned to survive disappointment. Lysandra did not stop. So did you, she replied. The woman matched her pace easily. Word travels fast, the woman said, even when it's not supposed to. Lysandra glanced sideways. Then the vault is already compromised. The woman snorted. Please. The vault breathes gossip like everyone else. Lysandra studied her. Properly now, dark coat, travel-worn, boots, the posture of someone used to leaving before questions started, and a scent that did not belong to this territory. Forest smoke, road dust, someone who crossed borders for a living. You are not assigned to the lodge, Lysandra said. No, the woman agreed. I'm assigned to listening. Lysandra stopped. The woman stopped too, unbothered. Name, Lysandra said. Corin Ashfall, she replied. Interpack courier. Unofficial. That explained the confidence. Couriers lived in the cracks between territories, where rules blurred and information mattered more than rank. You were at East Ridge, Lysandra said. Corin's eyebrow lifted slightly. You noticed. I notice patterns, Lysandra replied. Corin's mouth curved faintly. So I hear. They stood there, as rain dotted the packed earth around them. You wrote something tonight, Corin said. Something that made a council elder look like he'd swallowed a bone. Lysandra did not deny it. Corin tilted her head. You should know, she continued, that when elders get nervous, they stop playing defense. Lysandra met her gaze steadily. I am counting on it. Corin laughed quietly. Most people don't. I am not most people. No, Corin agreed. You're worse. Lysandra almost smiled. The humor was a knife too, just wrapped in velvet. What do you want? Lysandra asked. Corin considered her for a moment. Access, she said. Not now. Eventually. To what? To the record that isn't supposed to exist. Lysandra's eyes sharpened. That depends on why. Corin shrugged. Because if what you've started is real, she said, then this pack isn't the only one built on edited memory. The words settled slowly. Lysandra felt the shape of something larger beginning to form. And if I say no? She asked. Corin's smile faded, just slightly. Then someone louder will say yes later, she replied. And they won't ask as politely. The rain thickened again, tapping the leaves like impatient fingers. Lysandra weighed the moment. Not trust, alignment. Nothing leaves the vault without context, Lysandra said, Cori, and nodded, double quotes fair. And if I disappear, Lysandra continued, you will know why. Corin's eyes hardened. Yes. She hesitated, then added the first real offer, not a tease. And if they try to move you quietly, Corin said, I can move you louder. Lysandra held her gaze. That would cost you, she said. Corin's mouth tightened. Most useful things do. They stood there another moment. To women neither of them supposed to matter this much. Then Corin stepped back. Be careful. Vault Keeper, she said, you've turned memory into a weapon. Lysandra watched her fade into the rain. Then she turned toward her quarters. Pulse steady, mind sharp. Because tonight had confirmed what she had suspected the moment. She saw the pattern. The secrets were not just dangerous. They were connected. And if the council realized, she was no longer carrying them alone. They would not wait. They would act. Which meant she no longer had the luxury of moving slowly. Not when the truth had learned how to walk. Chapter 3, Continuity is not obedience. Lysandra woke before dawn. Not because of instinct, but because the lodge had changed its breathing. The halls were too quiet. Not empty quiet. Watched quiet. She lay still for a moment, eyes open in the dark, listening for footsteps, for murmurs, for the small sounds that meant wolves were pretending not to listen while they listened anyway. Nothing. That was worse. She dressed without lighting a lamp, tied her hair back, and slipped her ledger into her SATCHEL. Not the sealed covenant. Not the council-approved summaries. The parallel record. The one she had placed on the public tier shelf like a dare. When she opened her door, two guards stood at the end of the corridor, hands clasped behind their backs, faces carefully blank. One of them was young, a beta with a jaw stilled to soft, to look comfortable in authority. The other was older, eyes tired, posture practiced. Neither moved, neither greeted her. They were not there to rest her. Not yet. They were there to remind her she could be. Lysandra walked past them without changing pace. She did not look into their eyes. She did not offer them a reason to be human. Outside, the morning was cold enough to sting, the ground damp from last night's rain. The sky a flat gray that made the pines look darker than they should. The path to the vault was short, but she felt every step, like the lodge itself was counting them. At the vault entrance, she found the door already open. That should not have happened. Vault doors were closed, always, even when the keeper was inside. Especially when the keeper was inside and a single candle burned on the table. Someone had been there. Lysandra stopped on the threshold and inhaled slowly, no blood, no violence. But the scent was wrong. Council scent. Not elderelle alone, multiple, and beneath it, the sharper bite of fresh wax. Still warm enough to carry, they had entered her domain without her. Her pulse did not spike, it flattened, focus replacing anger. As she stepped in, closed the door behind her, and crossed to the table. On the oak surface lay a folded paper, unsealed, with her name written in firm script. Lysandra Vale, not Vault Keeper. A deliberate choice. She unfolded it. The notice, council session, Sunrise, mandatory attendance, the subject. Continuity review, additional instruction. The vault keeper will present all covenant records from the last 12 months for counsel. Audit. Lysandra read it twice. Audit. That word was meant to sound procedural, neutral. It was not. An audit was how the council took control without looking like it had. She set the notice down carefully. Then she walked to the shelves and checked the public tier. Her parallel record was still there, but it had shifted. Not removed, moved to inches to the left. A small adjustment. Meaningless on paper. Loud in message, we can touch what you touch. And if you pretend you did not notice, we will touch more. Lysandra closed her eyes for one breath, then opened them and turned to the sealed stacks. She did not need to check all of them. She went straight to a ledger she had not opened in years. A thick volume labeled with an old date and a simple category. Keeper precedents, not covenant. Summaries, not agreements. Cases and situations where a vault keeper had confronted the council. And what happened afterward. The book was heavier than she remembered. Not in weight, in implication. She opened it and flipped to the last entries. Each page carried the same pattern. A keeper raised a concern. The council praised their loyalty. The council offered support. The council increased oversight. The keeper stopped writing. One line repeated often. In different handwriting, across different years. Reassigned for stability. Stability again. The pack's favorite word for burying a problem. Lysandra traced a finger along the last recorded entry. The handwriting was crisp, controlled, almost familiar in its restraint. Vault Keeper Mira Thorne, year 317, filed a continuity dispute regarding covenant abuse. Council-initiated audit. Keeper was asked to resign for health. He asked. Lysandra exhaled slowly. Health. That meant soft pressure, isolation, rumors. A narrative written around her until her own wolves believed it. She heard the stairwell door open. She did not turn. Footsteps. One person, not council, to light. Not a guard, to relaxed. Corin Ashfall spoke before she reached the table. You were right. Lysandra looked up. Corin stood near the door, raincoat damp, eyes sharp. About what? About them moving fast. Corin replied. Lysandra closed the precedent ledger. They called an audit. She said. Corin's mouth tightened. And they entered the vault before you woke? Yes. Corin stepped closer. Then you should assume they copied something. Lysandra kept her face still. They cannot copy sealed records without breaking their own rules. Corin's expression did not change. You still believe they curse about rules. Lysandra did not answer. Because the truth was, she believed they cared about appearances. And appearances were a kind of ruled CORI and glanced at the notice. Audit, she said. They are going to demand you bring the covenants into the room. So they can control what is spoken. Lysandra replied. So they can decide what gets framed as necessity, Corin said. Lysandra nodded once. Corin leaned slightly forward. Are you going to comply? Lysandra looked at the candle on the table. Someone else had lit it. A small act of dominance, disguised as convenience. I will attend, she said. Corin's brows lifted. That is not what I asked. Lysandra's voice stayed calm. I am going to bring them what they want. Corin watched her. And Lysandra opened her satchel and took out the parallel record. She placed it on the table beside the candle, then set her palm flat on its cover. And I am going to bring what they do not want, she said. Corin's eyes narrowed. You are going to walk into a council session with a second record. Yes. Corin let out a low breath. That is either brave or stupid. Lysandra's gaze stayed steady. It is early, she said. They believe they can still shape the narrative. Corin tilted her head. You are going to take the narrative away from them. Lysandra nodded. Not by shouting, she said. By forcing them to respond to facts in front of witnesses. Corin's mouth curved faintly. You need witnesses that do not belong to them. Lysandra lifted her eyes. Do you know how to get them? Corin did not answer immediately. Instead, she stepped closer and lowered her voice. There is a trader family in the south sector, Corin said. They move supplies between territories, salt, iron, medicine. They owe the council. She continued. And they fear them. But they fear war more. Lysandra understood. Bring them, she said. Corin nodded. I can bring two. Lysandra's pulse remained steady, but her mind moved faster to witnesses. Not enough to overturn the council. Enough to make the council careful. Careful was the first crack. Corin glanced at the shelves. You are going to need more than a second record, she said. Lysandra's fingers tapped once on the cover of the precedent ledger. I know. Corin followed her gaze. Precedents, she said. Lysandra nodded. They have done this before, she replied. And every time, the keeper disappeared quietly. Corin's expression hardened. So you need to stop the quiet part. Yes, Lysandra said. Corin studied her for a beat, then her voice dropped. If you push this, she said, they will come for you in a way that looks clean. Lysandra met her eyes. I know. Corin's jaw tightened. And if they cannot make you resign, she continued, they will make you unreliable. The words settled heavily. Lysandra had expected threats. She had expected pressure. Unreliable was worse, because it meant the pack would start doubting her without ever knowing why. Lysandra reached into the satchel again and pulled out a small, plain object, a thin strip of metal, not decorative, stamped with an old vault mark. Corin's eyes narrowed. What is that? Lysandra held it between two fingers. A transfer tag, she said. Corin frowned. For what? For continuity, Lysandra replied. For memory that cannot be strangled in one throat. Corin blinked once. What does that mean? It means the vault was never meant to rely on one person, Lysandra said. There is a mechanism to split records, to distribute verified fragments when interference is suspected. Corin's posture sharpened. You can copy the parallel record. I can split it, Lysandra corrected. Not into loose pages. She continued. Into verified fragments, each sealed by vault protocol, not council wax. Corin stared at the metal strip, then at her. You are going to distribute the truth. Lysandra nodded. Not everywhere, she said. Only to people who cannot be silenced with one order. Corin's mouth curved. That is finally the right kind of dangerous. Lysandra set the transfer tag on the table. Then she closed the parallel record and slid it back into her satchel. Go, Lysandra said. Bring your two witnesses. Corin turned, paused at the door. One more thing, she said. Lysandra lifted her eyes. Corin's expression was grim. Elderel is not the one you should watch today, Corin said. Lysandra's stomach tightened. Who? Corin's voice lowered. Elder Caro Dane, she said. The quiet one who never argues. Lysandra felt the chill that came with recognition. Quiet elders were always the ones who signed the clean orders. Why him? Lysandra asked. Corin held her gaze. Because he is the one who meets with other packs in the dark, she said. And because last night, after you left the vault, he asked a simple question. Corin paused, then delivered it like a blade. How do we remove a keeper without making her a martyr? The candle flame trembled. Lysandra did not. She nodded once. Thank you, she said, Cori, and left. The vault fell silent again, but it no longer felt empty. It felt like a room waiting for something to break. Lysandra stood still for a moment, hand resting on the table, eyes on the shelves of sealed history. Then she moved. She gathered 3 specific ledgers, not the biggest, not the most dramatic, the ones with the cleanest patterns. She placed them in order. She took one more blank page and wrote a single line at the top, in the same neat hand as always. Continuity is not obedience. Then she folded it, slid it into her satchel with the others, and headed for the council chamber. Because if they were going to make her unreliable, she would make them visible first. And she had a strong suspicion that by the end of sunrise, the pack would learn a dangerous truth. The vault keeper was not the only one keeping secrets. The council was just better at hiding them. Chapter 4: An audit without witnesses. The council chamber smelled like dry wood, old smoke, and practiced certainty. It was brighter than the vault. That was intentional. The council liked light when they wanted to look transparent. Lysandra entered. Without hesitation, satchel at her side, posture straight, face composed. She could feel eyes tracking her, the guards at the doors, the patrols along the back wall, the clerks and aides who pretended they were invisible while taking mental notes. 5 elders behind the long table. Elder Maxton Rell sat second from the left, hands folded, expression calm. Elder Caro Dane sat at the center, quiet, but still. His gaze met Lysandra's for half a second and moved away, as if she was already decided. That was the first warning. The second was the seating. The front benches, where younger wolves usually packed in close to hear rulings, were half empty. Not because interest was low, because invitations were controlled. The council did not want a crowd. They wanted an audience, a selective one. Lysandra took her place at the side desk, set her ledger down, and waited. Elder Caro tapped the table once. Begin. The word carried no anger, no heat, just authority trained into the bones of the room. Elder Rell spoke next, voice warm, almost kind. Vault Keeper, he said, thank you for attending on such short notice. Lysandra inclined her head. Of course. We are conducting a continuity review, Rell continued, to ensure recent covenants have been stored correctly and without deviation. Without deviation. A neat phrase it meant. We think you moved out of line. Elder Caro leaned slightly forward. You will present the covenant summaries from the past 12 months. Lysandra did not reach for her satchel yet. Before I present anything, she said, I request that the review be witnessed by neutral parties, as permitted under vault protocol. The room stilled, and Elder Rell smiled gently, like she had said something childish. That is unnecessary. Elder Caro's voice was flat. Denied. Lysandra kept her tone calm. It is not a request for comfort, she said. It is a request for legitimacy. Elder Caro's eyes lifted, cold. You speak of legitimacy as if you doubt this council. Lysandra met his gaze. I doubt any process that avoids witnesses. A ripple moved through the back of the room. Not open agreement, the shift, a recognition. Elder Rell's smile tightened. Vault Keeper, he said softly, you are under strain. There it was. Not accusation, framing, he continued, voice calm and sympathetic. You carry heavy matters alone. You work long hours. You have been unsettled. Lysandra felt the shape of their plan with sharp clarity. They were not going to argue law with her. They were going to argue her. Elder Caro nodded once, as if he were listening to a doctor's report. We are concerned, he said. Lysandra looked at him. Concern is not procedure. Elder Caro's lips barely moved. It becomes procedure when a keeper's judgment is compromised. Compromised. The word landed like a stamp. Lysandra's pulse stayed steady. She opened her ledger, not the vault's, her own, and turned to a blank page. "Then let us make this simple," she said. "I will present the covenants, and I will also present the vault's continuity safeguards." Elder Rel's eyes narrowed slightly. "There is no need." "There is," Lysandra said, "because you are attempting to remove me by implication, not by rule." A few wolves in the back shifted, one guard's jaw tightened. Elder Caro's voice remained calm. "Present the covenants." Lysandra reached into her satchel and took out 3 ledgers. Not 12 months, 3, the cleanest pattern. She placed them on the desk one by one. Elder Rel glanced at them, then looked back up. "This is incomplete." "It is sufficient," Lysandra said. Elder Caro's eyes narrowed. "You will provide the full set." Lysandra nodded. "I will," she said, "after you answer a procedural question." Elder Rel's smile returned. "You are not in a position to interrogate the council." "I am in a position to protect the vault," Lysandra replied. Elder Caro leaned back slightly. "What question?" Lysandra opened the first ledger. "Who authorized entry into the vault last night?" she asked, voice clear. Before the keeper arrived, the room went dead still. Even the guards at the doors froze. Elder Rel did not blink. Elder Caro's face did not change, but a muscle in his jaw tightened. Just once. He spoke smoothly. "No one entered." Lysandra nodded, as if she accepted that. Then she lifted the ledger slightly, showing the inner cover. A small stamp, a maintenance mark. Not council wax, vault ink. Fresh. "Someone entered," Lysandra said. The door was open, the candle was lit, and the maintenance stamp was applied. Her eyes stayed on Elder Caro. "Vault ink is only issued with council authorization." Elder Caro's gaze sharpened. "Are you accusing this council of theft?" "I am asking for the authorization record," Lysandra replied. Elder Rel's voice softened again. "Lysandra," he said, using her name like a hand on her shoulder, "this is exactly what we mean. You are seeing threats where there are none." Gaslighting, clean and polite. Lysandra did not react. She simply reached into her satchel and pulled out the transfer tag. The thin strip of metal stamped with the old vault mark. She held it up for the room to see. "This is not paranoia," Lysandra said. "This is protocol." Elder Caro's eyes narrowed. "You have no authority to display that." "I do," Lysandra replied. "The vault keeper is authorized to initiate continuity transfer when interference is suspected." Murmurs spread now. Not loud, but real. Elder Rel's smile vanished completely. Elder Caro's voice turned colder. "You will put that away." Lysandra did not. She placed it on the desk beside the ledgers like a boundary line. "You want the covenants," she said. "You will have them, but not in a room where you can control the narrative and remove the keeper afterward." Elder Caro stared at her. "You believe you can dictate terms." "I believe you have forgotten," Lysandra replied, "that the vault does not belong to the council." That was the moment the room changed. Not because wolves suddenly supported her, because wolves realized the council had never been challenged this way. Elder Rel leaned forward, voice sharp now, concern discarded. "Enough," he said. "You will comply, or you will be suspended pending evaluation." There it was, the clean removal, the evaluation, no trial, no vote in front of the pack. Just a quiet disappearance with a sympathetic label. Lysandra inhaled once. Then she opened her satchel and removed the parallel record, not held up like a weapon. Placed gently on the desk, the way you place something fragile that can still cut. Elder Caro's eyes flicked to it. Elder Rel's face tightened. "What is that?" Caro asked. "A continuity ledger," Lysandra said. Created under Vault's safeguard protocol. Elder Rel's voice was tight. That is not approved. It does not require approval. Lysandra replied. It requires necessity. Elder Caro stared at her for a long moment. Then he spoke, smooth as stone. You are undermining council authority. Lysandra met his gaze. No, she said. I am documenting it. A silence stretched, long enough for everyone to feel the gap between power and legitimacy. Then Elder Caro lifted one hand, and a clerk at his side stepped forward with a thin document already prepared. Not a covenant, a certification. The clerk's fingers were ink-stained, but the stamp at the bottom was clean. Vault mark. Lysandra's single quotes as attention sharpened. Elder Caro's voice remained calm. For the record, he said, the council is filing a keeper status notice. He gestured, the smallest movement. The clerk placed the paper on Lysandra's desk, as if it belonged there. Effective immediately, Elder Caro continued. Vault Keeper Lysandra Vale is flagged for continuity variance pending evaluation. Variance, not guilt, not proof. A procedural bruise that could spread without anyone seeing the hand that pressed it. The room stirred. Confused, Lysandra looked at the stamp. Vault mark. Elder Rel watched her closely now, not smiling, not pretending. The twist hit cold. They had already moved the vault against her. She had assumed the vault answered to protocol. They were showing her that protocol could be bent from the inside. Elder Caro leaned forward slightly. You asked for legitimacy, he said. This is legitimacy. Lysandra's fingers did not shake, but something in her chest tightened. Precise as a trap snapping, because if the council could flag her inside the vault system, then any record she produced could be framed as corrupted. Not wrong, unreliable. Elder Rel spoke softly, almost gentle again. We do not want to remove you, he said. We want to protect the pack from what strain does to a keeper. Lysandra lifted her gaze to Elder Caro. Vault marks require keeper verification, she said. Elder Caro's eyes held hers. They require a keeper, he replied. Not necessarily you. A quiet murder of identity, delivered like procedure. Lysandra felt eyes in the room shift. Not toward the elders, but toward her desk, toward the paper, toward the stamp. The council had not come to debate. They had come to infect her credibility. Lysandra reached into her satchel again. Not for the transfer tag, not yet. She pulled out a single envelope, plain, sealed with vault wax, not council wax. She set it beside the parallel record. Then let us record this properly, she said. The council has entered the vault without the keeper. The council has issued vault ink, and the council has filed a variance notice before any keeper review. Elder Rel's jaw flexed. Elder Caro's voice hardened a fraction. You are finished. Then, from the back of the room, a new voice cut in. You cannot suspend her without a formal keeper review. The speaker stepped forward, an older trader, broad-shouldered, wearing travel leathers, the smell of salt and iron clinging to him. Not a council man, not a soldier, not a neutral. Corin had been fast. The trader continued, voice steady. My family trades between packs, he said. We have been present for keeper reviews before. Elder Caro's gaze narrowed. You were not invited. The trader's eyes did not drop. Then you should ask yourself why, he replied. The room shifted again. Because outsiders did not speak like that, unless they smelled blood. Corin appeared beside the trader. Expression neutral, hands empty, posture relaxed. She looked at Lysandra. Once a small nod to witnesses. Not enough to win. Enough to make the council careful. Elder Rel's jaw flexed. Elder Caro tapped the table once, harder than before. Guards, he said calmly. Escort these outsiders out. The guards took one step forward. Lysandra's voice cut through, sharp and clear. If you remove them, she said, I will initiate transfer. Elder Caro's eyes snapped to her. You would dare? Lysandra held his gaze. Yes, she said. Because if you can remove witnesses, you can remove truth. Elder Caro stared at her for a long moment. Then he lifted a hand. The guard stopped. He turned slightly, addressing the room as if nothing had happened. Very well, he said. The outsiders may remain as observers. He looked at Lysandra again, voice low. For now. Lysandra nodded once, as if she accepted the concession. She did not. She understood what it meant. They had adjusted their plan, not abandoned it. Elder Caro leaned forward. Proceed with the presentation, he said. Lysandra opened the first ledger and began to read, not like a woman begging to be believed, but like a keeper doing what she was born to do, setting the record in the open, one fact at a time, while the council searched for the quietest way to make her disappear. Chapter 5: The Cost of Variance. The word spread faster than any formal decree. Variance. It moved through the lodge like a stain, subtle, controlled, impossible to wash away once it touched fabric. By mid-morning, Lysandra could feel it in the way wolves looked at her. Not hostility, not yet calculation. She walked through the commons with her satchel at her side, shoulders straight, aware of the quiet shifts in posture as she passed. Some stepped back instinctively. Some held her gaze longer than before, as if searching for visible cracks. Variance, it was a clever move. Not removal, not accusation, just doubt. Filed officially. The vault had marked her, and for wolves who had grown up believing the vault was impartial, that mattered. She did not return to her quarters. She went to the vault. The door was closed this time and sealed, not with council wax, with vault wax. Her pulse slowed. That was new. She stepped closer. The seal bore the same mark as the notice in the chamber. Keeper status variance. Access restricted, pending review restricted. Not revoked. A thin line. Someone had chosen their language carefully. Lysandra pressed her palm flat against the door. The stone was cold. The vault did not open. Behind her, a voice spoke. You shouldn't touch it. She turned. The speaker stood halfway down the corridor. Not elder, not guard, but council enforcement. Alpha's hand, Kieran Dreven. He was not dressed in ceremonial cloak or clerk robes. He wore field leathers, dark, practical, cut for movement. A faint scar traced from his left brow to his cheek, old and clean. He had been at Eastridge. She remembered him standing beside the patrol line when the bodies were carried back. He had not looked away. His gaze now was steady, measured, not unkind, which made him more dangerous. I am the vault keeper, Lysandra said. Flagged for variance, Kieran replied. His voice was low, controlled, the kind that did not need to rise to be obeyed. Pending review, she corrected. A flicker in his eyes, approval or irritation. Difficult to tell. He stepped closer, not crowding her, close enough that she could smell forest and iron on him. You're escalating, he said quietly. So are they, Lysandra replied. Kieran's jaw flexed. This isn't a council debate anymore, he said. It's becoming a stability issue. Stability, she repeated softly. How many wolves does that word cost this season? His eyes sharpened at that, not offended, struck. He looked at the seal on the vault door. You triggered transfer protocol, he said, not a question. She did not answer. He exhaled slowly. You know what that does, he continued. It activates oversight from outside packs. There it was. A layer she had not been told. Lysandra held his gaze. Good, she said. Oversight is the point. Kieran stepped closer, lowering his voice. No, he said. External oversight invites challenge. Challenge invites conflict. Conflict invites war. The word hung between them, war. This was his motivation, not comfort, not power. Prevention. How many covenants were signed to avoid war? Lysandra asked. And how many wolves died quietly so no one had to use that word out loud? Kieran's silence stretched. Then he said the thing she did not expect. My brother was one of the cost-absorbed entries. The air shifted. Not dramatically, just enough. Lysandra's single quotes' breath slowed. Then you know, she said. I know, he replied. That sometimes the cost is worse. That landed harder than accusation. You think I'm wrong, she said. I think you're right in a way that burns too fast, he replied. His eyes flicked to the vault door again. The variance notice isn't just about you, he said. It allows the council to review every action you've taken in the last year. Lysandra's stomach tightened. Retroactive scrutiny, she said. Yes, and if they find procedural deviation, they can invalidate your transfer. There it was, the real strike. If her authority was retroactively weakened, the fragments she sent could be dismissed as corrupted. Not false, compromised, double quotes. They planned this, she said quietly. Kieran did not deny it. They planned containment, he replied, because they believe you are destabilizing the pack. I am destabilizing their control, she said. Those are not the same. He studied her for a long moment. Then his voice dropped lower. Kara wants you removed before sunset. Her pulse did not jump. It sharpened. Removed how? Publicly, he said. As unstable. Privately, he added. As transferred for health. Mira Thorne, the precedent. Lysandra's mind moved fast. You're warning me, she said. Kieran's jaw tightened. I am informing you. That's not the same. It is if you survive it. Silence settled between them, charged, not romantic. Not yet. But something else, recognition. Why? Lysandra asked. Why tell me? Double quotes. Kieran's single quotes' gaze held hers. Because if they erase you, he said, they erase the record of my brother. There it was, not love, not loyalty, stake. Then stand beside me, she said. Direct, no softness. His expression hardened. I can't, he replied. I am Alpha's hand. I enforce council decree. And if I refuse, they replace me with someone who won't warn you. That was honest and more dangerous than defiance. Lysandra stepped away from the vault door. Then don't refuse, she said, double quotes delay. He watched her carefully. Delay what? The review. The physical transfer. Whatever clean method they've prepared. His gaze sharpened. You're planning something. Yes. What? A pack assembly. Kieran's expression changed. Not fear. Calculation. You don't have authority to call one. Neither do they, she replied. Without risk. His eyes flicked toward the corridor. Guards were shifting at the far end, watching. If you do this, he said quietly, you force a fracture. It's already fractured, Lysandra replied. I'm just removing the cloth over it. He held her gaze another second, then he stepped back. Formality sliding into place like armor. You have until sunset, he said. After that, the council proceeds. With or without you. He turned to leave, then paused. If you run, he added, without looking back, I will be ordered to bring you in. Lysandra did not flinch. Then don't let me run. Kieran's shoulders stilled for a fraction of a second. Then he walked away. The guards at the end of the corridor straightened as he passed. Lysandra stood alone before the sealed vault. Variance, restricted, review pending. She had thought the battle would be about truth. It was about time, sunset, and she turned from the door and began walking. Not toward her quarters. Toward the commons. If they intended to remove her quietly before the pack could hear the record, then she would make sure the pack heard it first. And if the Alpha's hand was willing to delay the blade, she would use that delay. Because now the cost of variance was clear. It was not just reputation, it was erasure. And she had no intention of disappearing politely. Chapter 6. The Unreliable Woman. By noon, everyone knew two versions of what happened in the council chamber. In the first version, Lysandra Vale had protected the pact. In the second, she had endangered it. The council did not invent lies. They rearranged truth. She invited outsiders. She challenged authority. She froze negotiations. She threatened transfer. All true, and in the wrong mouth. Truth could sound like sabotage by midday. A third version began spreading. The vault had logged interference. Not her voice. Not her accusation, the system mark. That changed the tone. Lysandra did not return to the vault immediately. She walked through the den corridor instead. Not to persuade, to be seen. Wolves looked at her differently now. Less. More calculation. Because if she were unstable, why had the vault recorded interference? Mara then stepped into the corridor as Lysandra passed. They're escalating, Mara said quietly. I know, Lysandra replied. Mara's eyes were sharp. Caro has called a sunset assembly. Lysandra stilled. That was faster than expected. Public, Mara added. Mandatory, of course. The council would not let rumor breathe overnight. They would control the ending before it formed. They're going to present you as compromised, Mara said, with documentation. Lysandra's pulse slowed. Fabricated. Carefully selected, Mara corrected. That was worse. Half-truths cut deeper. Lysandra nodded once. Then sunset is where this ends. She said. Mara studied her. Or begins. Lysandra moved on. At the edge of the lodge grounds, she found Kieran waiting. Not hiding. Not official, watching. You triggered it, he said. Double quotes, yes. Double quotes. His gaze sharpened. The vault logged council interference. Yes. He exhaled slowly. Caro is furious. Good. Kieran stepped closer. You don't understand, he said quietly. He's not reacting politically. He's reacting strategically. Lysandra met his gaze. Explain. Kieran's jaw tightened. The Eastern Pack has already received notification. Her breath shifted. That was fast. Transfer protocol isn't symbolic, he said. It flags potential covenant instability across borders. Lysandra absorbed that. This was bigger than internal politics now. And what does Eastern think? She asked. Kieran's eyes held hers. They think we're fractured. There it was, real consequence. Caro will use that. Kieran continued. He'll argue you've endangered trade and peace. And he'll be partially right. Lysandra did not look away. Peace built on buried bodies is not peace. War built on exposure is still war, he replied. Silence pressed between them, not soft, not romantic. A collision of belief. Stand with me at sunset, she said, direct. Kieran's single quotes as expression hardened. I can't. You can. If I stand with you publicly, I fracture enforcement. If you stand with them, you fracture truth. That landed. His voice dropped. If this turns violent, he said, wolves will follow me. And you don't know which direction I'll choose. Lysandra stepped closer. close enough to feel the heat of him, the restrained strength. Choose correctly, she said, no pleading, no softness, a challenge. His breath shifted. For the first time, not controlled. You're asking me to gamble the pack, he said. I'm asking you to stop protecting a lie, she replied. A beat, then footsteps. 2 guards approaching fast, not routine. Urgent. Kieran straightened instantly. Authority snapping into place. What? The council has sealed the commons, one guard said. Sunset Assembly moved up. Lysandra's pulse sharpened. To when? Now. Of course, control the tempo. Do not let her gather support. Kieran's single quotes eyes flicked to her. Decision time. They're afraid, she said quietly. Yes, he replied. Of losing narrative. Of losing control. He corrected. The guard shifted uneasily. Elder Caro has ordered you present immediately, he said to Lysandra. Escorted. There it was, public framing. Lysandra looked at Kieran. Are you escorting me? His jaw tightened. Yes. As enforcement. As Alpha's hand. She nodded once. Then walk beside me. She said, not behind, not ahead, beside. The request hung between them like a blade. If he placed her in front, she was accused. If behind, she was detained. Beside meant equal footing. Kieran held her gaze. Long enough for the guards to notice, then he stepped to her side. Move, he said. They walked toward the commons together. The wolves were already gathering. Voices low. Tension thick. At the far end, Elder Caro stood elevated. Composed. Documents in hand. Elder Rel beside him, calm again, as if the morning had not fractured anything. Kieran stopped at the front of the crowd. Lysandra remained beside him. Not kneeling. Not restrained, visible. Caro's single quotes eyes narrowed slightly at their positioning. He began without preamble. The Vault Keeper has initiated external transfer without council approval, he said in murmurs. This action has triggered review from Eastern Pack. Louder murmurs. This endangers Covenant stability. True, framed. Caro lifted a paper. The Vault also logged interference. He continued. The crowd stilled. He held up the document. Upon review, that log corresponds to routine maintenance authorized under council directive. There it was. REFRAMING. Lysandra felt the floor tilt slightly. Routine maintenance, authorized, clean. Caro's voice remained smooth. The Vault Keeper interpreted this incorrectly. A ripple. Unreliable. Again, Lysandra stepped forward. Kieran did not stop her. Then show the directive, she said clearly. The crowd shifted. Caro did not blink. Sealed. Convenient, she replied. Murmurs grew. Kieran's single quotes presence beside her was a weight, steady. Caro's voice hardened slightly. Vault Keeper. Lysandra Vale has demonstrated pattern fixation and escalation beyond protocol. Fixation. Unstable language. Lysandra lifted her chin. Then let the vault speak, she said. She turned toward the crowd. Transfer protocol has already distributed verified fragments. She continued. Not to rivals, to witnesses. Wolves looked at one another now. Uncertainty spreading. Caro's eyes flashed. Unauthorized dissemination of internal record is grounds for removal. If the record is false. Lysandra replied. Say so. Caro's jaw tightened. It is incomplete. Then complete it, she said, silence heavy. Because completion would mean exposing names, costs, patterns. Kieran's single quotes voice cut through. Calm but carrying. Produce the maintenance directive. Every head turned. Even Caro's. That was the fracture. Small, visible. Alpha single quotes hand had just requested proof. Caro studied Kieran for a long moment. Calculating risk. Then he smiled, small and controlled, double quotes, very well. He said, "It will be presented at dusk, double quotes, delay by time." Kieran's eyes flicked to Lysandra. Sun said again, this was not over, this was escalation. The crowd began to disperse slowly, murmuring, not convinced, not calm, uncertain. Exactly where the council did not like them. Lysandra felt it clearly now. The pack was no longer divided into believers and doubters. It was divided into watchers, and watchers were dangerous. Kieran leaned closer, voice low. "You forced his hand." "No," she replied quietly. "I forced him to delay." He studied her. "Dusk decides this." "Yes," she said, and for the first time since morning, something like fire moved through her veins. Because Caro had made a mistake. He had promised proof. And if he failed to produce it, the unreliable woman would become the only consistent thing left standing. Chapter 7. When the vault speaks. The vault did not announce itself, it never had. That was the council's first mistake. They expected disruption to arrive loudly, with accusation or spectacle, something they could counter with ceremony and authority. Instead, the change crept outward in the only language the pack truly trusted, recorded by mid-morning. Clerks were whispering. Not because Lysandra said anything, because the vault had. The first notice appeared on the internal boards near the supply hall, written in neutral hand, stamped with vault verification. Continuity alert unauthorized access recorded. And time verified, no names, no blame, just fact. By noon, a second notice followed. Preservation mode active certain agreements. Temporarily frozen. Council had planned to control the day. They lost it before midday. Lysandra stood at the edge of the commons, not elevated, not hidden, watching the pack react in the way packs always did when authority slipped. They did not riot. They questioned, a merchant argued with a guard about a delayed shipment, a patrol leader demanded clarification on a border run. A den mother asked why an agreement that fed her children had never been put before the pack. The council tried to respond. Elder Rel stood on the steps of the lodge and spoke of misunderstanding. Elder Caro spoke of internal review. They used the right words. They just said them too late, because behind them, nailed to the board by a clerk whose hands shook but did not stop, was a third notice. Keeper continuity log available for review access. Limited to verified readership. One mattered, because it meant the vault was no longer silent. It meant someone else had the pages, and it meant Caro had run out of time. Lysandra felt Corin at her side before she saw her. "It's moving," Corin said quietly. "Yes," Lysandra replied. "They're trying to contain it," Corin continued. They ordered the boards cleared. Lysandra's eyes stayed on the lodge. "They can remove paper," she said. "They can't remove memory." Corin glanced at her. "You sound calm." "I'm not," Lysandra replied. She felt it now. Not fear, the edge. The moment where the council would decide between restraint and force. When dressed politely, always arrived as a proposal. It came sooner than she expected. A runner approached from the lodge, posture stiff, eyes flicking between them. "Vault Keeper," he said. "I am suspended," Lysandra replied calmly. The runner swallowed. "Elder Caro requests your presence," he said. Corin's jaw tightened. "Alone?" the runner added. Lysandra met Corin's gaze. This was it. The private conversation, the clean offer, the quiet threat, and a test of who would frame her first. "I will go," Lysandra said, Cori, and leaned closer. "Do not let them isolate you," she said. Lysandra's mouth curved, just slightly. "They are already isolated," she replied. Kieran Dreven stepped out of the lodge shadow as she moved. He did not speak. He did not touch her, but he walked near enough that the guards watching from the doors could see a simple fact. She was not being dragged, and she was not alone inside. The council chamber was emptier than before. No witnesses, no traitors, just elders, and guards placed carefully near exits. Elder Caro stood when she entered. "You have caused disruption," he said. Lysandra inclined her head. "The vault did," she replied. Caro's eyes hardened. "Do not pretend this is not your doing." Lysandra met his gaze. "I initiated protocol," she said. The rest followed automatically. Caro gestured toward the table. "Sit." Lysandra did not. "I will stand." A pause. Caro exhaled slowly. "You are forcing us into an impossible position." Lysandra waited and Caro continued. "You have raised doubts that threaten stability. There it is," Lysandra said quietly. Caro's brow creased. "You could still end this," he said. Lysandra tilted her head slightly. "How?" Caro's voice dropped. "Withdraw the challenge," he said. "Declare the continuity alert a misinterpretation. You return to the vault, and we move forward." Lysandra studied him. This was the offer. No punishment, no apology, just erasure. "And the variance notice?" Lysandra asked. Caro did not blink. "Rescinded," he said. "For your own good. For your own good." The council's favorite phrase for control with soft edges. Lysandra nodded slowly. "You are asking me to lie," she said. Caro's mouth tightened. "I am asking you to protect the pack." Lysandra shook her head once. "You are asking me to protect you." Caro's composure cracked for the first time. "You think the pack wants this chaos?" he snapped. "I think the pack wants honesty," Lysandra replied. Caro's voice dropped dangerously. "You are replaceable." "Yes," Lysandra said. "But the vault is not." Silence fell heavy. Caro leaned forward. "You know what happens to people who fracture trust," he said. "Yes," Lysandra replied. "They are called unreliable." Caro stared at her. "And once that word settles," he said, "nothing you say will matter." Lysandra's voice softened. "You are right." She reached into her SATCHEL. Caro stiffened. Kieran's posture shifted near the door, subtle. "Ready?" Lysandra did not pull out pages. She pulled out nothing. She simply rested her hand on the bag. "Which is why I made sure it wouldn't be my voice that mattered," she said. Caro's single quotes eyes narrowed. "What did you do?" Lysandra met his gaze. "I triggered secondary release," she said. Caro froze. "That is not possible." "It is," Lysandra replied. "The transfer tag allows staged verification." Caro's breath stilled. "Where?" he demanded. Lysandra answered calmly. "In 3 places," she said. "One outside this pack, one with a neutral, and one inside." Caro's face tightened. "You are bluffing." Lysandra shook her head. "You know I'm not." Caro stepped back. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Not because he feared her, because he feared what he could no longer retrieve. "If you think this ends with you walking away," he said, "you are wrong." Lysandra's voice was steady. "I don't need to walk away," she said. "I just need to stop you from controlling how this ends." She turned. Caro's voice cut sharp. "If you leave this room," he said, "you will never return to the vault." Lysandra paused at the door. "That is already true," she said. She opened it. Outside, the commons were louder now. Not shouting. Talking, arguing, thinking. Corin was waiting. Kieran was there too. A step back. As if he did not belong to either side and hated that it was true. "They're panicking," Corin said quietly. "They should." Lysandra replied. A bell rang from the supply hall. Then another. Signals. Pack communication. Not council ceremony. Lysandra watched wolves gather. Not summoned by elders, but drawn by uncertainty, by the need to understand. What happens now? Corin asked. Lysandra looked at the crowd, at the den mothers, at the patrols, at the traders, and at the board where the vault notices hung like clean cuts in wood. At dusk, she said, the pack meets. Corin's eyes widened. They'll try to stop it. Yes, Lysandra replied. And fail. Kieran's gaze flicked to her, warning and something sharper beneath it. If this turns, he said quietly, it turns fast. Lysandra held his gaze. Then don't let it turn toward silence, she replied. The sun slid lower, and for the first time since the vault was built, the pack was not waiting for permission to listen. They were waiting for the record, and the council knew it, which meant there was only one chapter left where power would try to speak louder than truth, and lose. Chapter 8. The pack remembers. By sunset, the commons were full, not the way they filled for ceremonies. When wolves arrived in neat lines and waited for elders to speak, this was different. People gathered in uneven clusters, family dens close together, patrols standing in loose formation, traders near the edges, ears angled toward every whisper. No one had issued an invitation, no one had posted an agenda. That was the point. Lysandra stood near the center with Corin at her side, not elevated, not framed as a leader, just present. She let the pack see her face, steady and unadorned, so they could decide for themselves whether she looked like a liar. Kieran stood at the edge of the crowd, not beside the council, not beside her, where a fracture could not be denied, but a choice had not yet been spoken. Above them, the lodge windows glowed warm with lamplight. The council watched from inside, not hidden, not brave enough to join. A bell rang once, sharp and plain, not a ritual bell, a supply bell used for emergencies, shortages, lost children. It made every wolf in the commons go still. A clerk stepped onto the supply hall steps, hands trembling, holding a wooden case. The case bore the vault mark. Verified. The clerk looked like she wanted to run, but she stayed. That mattered too. Her voice carried, thin but clear. By vault protocol, she said, continuity verification has been initiated. A murmur spread through the crowd, then quieted again, faster than Lysandra expected. Because wolves understood something basic. A council speech could be bent, a record could not. Not unless someone broke it. And if they broke it, everyone would see the fracture. The clerk opened the case. Inside were 3 sealed sleeves, each stamped with the same plain wax. No council crest, no elder authority, only the vault mark. The clerk lifted the first sleeve. This fragment is verified, she said. It documents unauthorized access to the vault. She unfolded the page slowly, hands careful, and read the time stamp, the log notation, the protocol language. No accusations, no names, but the implication was obvious. Someone had entered the vault outside keeper presence. The crowd reacted the way wolves always did when they realized a boundary had been crossed. Not with screams, with anger that sharpened into attention. A patrol leader stepped forward. Who has vault access? He demanded. The clerk swallowed. Council authorization grants maintenance Inc., she said. Her eyes flicked toward the lodge. A den mother's voice rose from the crowd. Then the council entered the vault. That sentence hit like a stone. Elder Rel appeared at the lodge steps a moment later, flanked by guards, hands lifted in a calming gesture. Enough, he called. This is disorder. This is a misreading of protocol. His voice was smooth, practiced, meant to settle nerves like a hand on a muzzle. But it did not settle anything, because the clerk lifted the second sleeve. "This fragment is verified," she said. "It documents preservation mode activation." She read the lines. The freeze, the restrictions, the reason code. Interference suspected. The commons stirred again, louder now, frustration cutting through. A traitor shouted from the edge. "You froze my route." "Not her," another voice snapped back. "The council did, by interfering." Elder Rel's calm tightened. "You are being manipulated," he called. "You are being turned against your own governance." Lysandra kept her face neutral. She did not argue with him. She did not need to, because the clerk lifted the third sleeve. "This fragment is verified," she said. "It documents continuity pattern correlation." That one was the knife. The clerk read dates. Not all of them, just enough. Midsummer meeting. Eastridge border. Cost absorbed. Harvest covenant adjustment. Migration corridor narrowed. Cost absorbed. Winter first moon. Patrol loss. Cost absorbed. The words cost absorbed repeated like a drumbeat. A young wolf in the crowd blinked hard. "My brother died on a patrol run," he said, voice breaking despite his attempt to keep it controlled. "They told us it was unavoidable." A second voice answered, older, bitter. "They always tell us that." Kieran's shoulders tightened at the edge of the crowd. For a moment, he looked like a man hearing a name that never stopped haunting him. That Elder Rel stepped forward, voice rising. "This is exactly why secrets exist," he shouted. "To prevent panic, to prevent mobs, to prevent wolves who do not understand strategy from tearing the pack apart." The crowd reacted instantly to that, not because it was shocking, because it was familiar. The contempt was always there. He had simply said it out loud. Elder Caro appeared beside him, face composed, voice quieter, more dangerous. "This meeting is not authorized," he said. "You will disperse." No one moved. A patrol leader stepped forward. "By what right?" he asked. "Do you order us to forget what was just read?" Elder Caro's gaze narrowed. "By the right of leadership." The patrol leader's jaw tightened. "You did not lead," he said. "You managed." That sentence rippled outward, quiet but lethal. Lysandra felt it in her chest, not triumph. The end of an illusion. Elder Caro's eyes snapped to her, cold and direct. "This is what you wanted," he said. Lysandra's single quotes voice carried, calm and clear. "This is what you built," she replied. A long beat of silence followed. Then Mara Ven, the den healer, stepped into the open. She did not raise her voice. She did not threaten. She simply asked the question everyone had avoided for years. "How many of our dead were cost absorbed?" she said. No one answered, not the elders, not the guards, because the answer was too large to hold neatly. Elder Caro's composure cracked just enough to show irritation. "We do what must be done," he said. Mara's eyes hardened. "You do what keeps you in that chair," she replied. The crowd stirred again, not shouting, but shifting into something firmer. "Decision." Elder Rel lifted a hand. "This pack will not be ruled by clerks and ledgers," he said, "and it will not be ruled by rumor." He pointed at Lysandra. "She is unstable. She has been seeing patterns that do not exist. She has been under strain for months." The word unstable tried to settle over the commons like fog. Lysandra felt the moment. This was where their story either worked or died. She stepped forward one pace, just one. Not to confront them as an enemy, to confront them as what she had always been. A keeper of memory. "Unstable," she said, voice even. "If I were unstable, you would not have needed to steal a record." That landed hard. Elder Rel's mouth tightened. Lysandra continued. If I were unstable, the vault would not have verified anything. She gestured toward the clerk and the case. This is not my opinion, she said. This is the vault speaking. The Commons went still again, deeper this time, as if everyone felt the same simple truth settle into place. The council could call her anything, but the record had no motive. Elder Caro's voice sharpened. Enough. He stepped down from the lodge steps, guards shifting with him. Lysandra did not move back. Neither did the crowd. A patrol leader stepped into the line between elders and pack, hands open, not threatening, but solid. Stop, he said. Elder Caro's eyes flashed. You would block your elders. The patrol leader held his ground. I would block anyone, he said, who tries to silence a record with force. For a moment, it looked like it could tip, not into violence, into the threat of it. Then a different voice cut in, quiet, steady. And because it was quiet, wolves leaned in to hear it. Enough, Kieran said. He stepped forward from the edge of the crowd, not in council position, not in guard formation. Just a man with authority that came from being the one others followed when things turned brutal. Elder Rel stared. Alpha's hand, he snapped. Do your duty. Kieran's gaze did not move from the elders. I am, he said. He turned slightly, letting the crowd see his face. The vault recorded interference. He continued. If the council claims it was maintenance, then produce the directive now. Caro's eyes narrowed. This is not your place. Kieran's voice stayed even. It becomes my place when the pack is on the edge of fracture. Silence. Because everyone knew what that meant. If the elders pushed, it would be guards against patrols, and no one wanted to see which side Kieran would choose. Caro held Kieran's gaze. Then he did what he always did. He delayed. The directive is sealed under council archive, Caro said. It will be presented after this meeting. Kieran's expression did not change. Then you are asking the pack to disperse on trust, he said. Elder Rel spread his hands. Yes, he said. That is how governance works. Mara's voice cut clean through. No, she said. That is how control works. The crowd shifted again, firmer now. Not loud, unified. Elder Caro measured it quickly. How many still feared him enough to obey? How many would refuse? He found less than he expected. And that was when the clerk, shaking, lifted her chin. By protocol, she said, voice trembling but firm, a keeper may resign the vault rather than submit it to interference. The crowd murmured. Elder Rel's eyes snapped. What? The clerk looked at Lysandra. Lysandra understood immediately. This was the cleanest ending. Not a coup. Not a new council, a refusal, a choice. Lysandra turned toward the pack. Not toward the elders. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. I will not be your vault keeper, she said in a ripple of shock, because everyone had expected her to fight to keep the role. That was the trap. If she clung to it, they could frame her as ambitious. If she stepped away, they lost their script. Lysandra continued, calm and precise. The vault was built to protect memory. It has been used to protect power. I will not carry that anymore. She glanced toward the lodge steps. And I will not let the council choose my replacement in private. Elder Caro's voice was sharp now. You are abandoning the pack. Lysandra met his gaze. No, she said. I am returning it to itself. She reached into her satchel and withdrew the transfer tag. She held it up, visible to everyone. There are verified fragments outside this pack, she said. If anything happens to me, the record continues. She looked back at the crowd. That is the only reason I can say this next part without fear. A hush fell so clean it felt like air freezing. The vault will be sealed, Lysandra said. Not by council. Lock. By protocol lock. Until the pack appoints a keeper by open vote, she continued. Witnessed by neutral traders. Elder Rel stared, the first genuine alarm on his face. You can't, he said. Lysandra nodded. I can. She turned to the clerk. Do it, she said softly. The clerk's hands shook as she reached into the case for a final item, a plain iron seal, older than the lodge itself. She pressed it to the wood. A dull click echoed. Something unseen shifted, like a door closing deep in the bones of the place. Protocol lock. The vault had gone silent again. But this time, the silence belonged to everyone. Elder Caro's face had gone hard. Calculating. He looked at the crowd as if trying to measure who still feared him enough to obey. He found less than he expected. Mara stepped forward again, voice steady. We will vote, she said. And until then, the council will not make covenants in the dark. A chorus of agreement rose. Not loud, but unified. Elder Rel's jaw clenched. This is chaos, he muttered. Lysandra looked at him, expression calm. No, she said. This is accountability. She turned away from the lodge, away from the elders, toward the outer path that led down into the trees and out into open territory. Corin fell into step beside her. Quiet. Giran followed 2 paces behind, not touching, not claiming, but not letting the council place hands on her back. You're leaving, Corin said. Lysandra nodded, double quotes. Yes. You could stay, Corin said. Beekeeper again. Under new rules. Lysandra did not stop walking. If I stay, she said, they will turn this into my story. And then when they want to control it again, they will just remove me and pretend the problem was solved. Corin's gaze stayed ahead. So you're making it the pack's story? Lysandra nodded. Exactly. Kieran's voice came from behind them, quiet enough that only they heard. You're making yourself a target. Lysandra glanced back once. I already was, she said. The night air smelled clean, cold and honest. Behind them, voices rose, organizing, arguing, deciding. Not perfect, not quiet, but real. At the edge of the lodge grounds, Lysandra stopped and looked back once. The council still stood on the steps, smaller than they had been that morning, their authority no longer invisible. The commons still churned with emotion, but beneath it ran something steadier, a memory. Shared. Lysandra exhaled slowly, not relief, release. Then she turned away for good. Kieran fell into step beside her now, finally, matching her pace without touching. Where do you go? He asked. Lysandra's single quotes' voice was steady. Somewhere the record can't be buried, she said, a beat, then quieter. And somewhere I get to choose what I carry. Kieran held that in silence, like a vow he had not earned the right to say aloud. The path ahead was dark, but it was hers. And for the first time in her life, the pack's secrets were no longer a cage. They were simply the past. And the past, once named, could not command the future.